So before I get to KPLC, you saw how successful the maandamano Sabasaba Day protests were. Today, you've just been seeing in the news the government, pro-government officials, sycophants have just been posturing and saying how it's veering to treason and I don't know what. I mean, the people's right to protest when you don't deliver. When you promise something and then you deliver the exact opposite. Their right to protest, to air their grievances, this is enshrined in the Constitution. So whatever you're trying to say, the sentiments that you're trying to trigger, the emotions that you're trying to appeal to, I've never seen Kenyans united in this manner, in this extreme form where Kenyans from all walks of life, across the tribal divides and everything, guys are speaking from the same language that you guys overpromised and underdelivered. Now, people know by certain signals that you're on the right track, but from day one, you guys have been veering off track. You've been dispatching toxic politicians to come and just distract our attention. You've been doing everything else other than what you promised, including now the cost of living, fuel, and the likes, which is why people are complaining about things like EPLC, because those are the things you promised to tackle when you got into office. You were using that, you were playing the victim card. I saw Itumbi the other day trying to say, oh, there are some journalists who are, I don't know what, they are planning anti-government sentiments to fill them in the mainstream media. But bro, the only time you're gonna flash the victim card was when you were an underdog, when you were by then you were fighting against Uhuru. But now you've been in a government for close to a year with nothing to show. Everything that you promised, everything is a no-show. It's just all the time you're just going in a tent with some prepaid hecklers, claiming that you've done something, throwing jabs at the other opposition, people who are not in government, people who are not the ones in power, but you've been throwing jabs at them only because they have not considered their right, their constitutional right to hold you accountable. So you've been there going to throw jabs at Baba. Baba is not in government. Baba is not in anywhere in power, but you've been throwing jabs at him. And during that same period, you have absconded your duty. So you only have yourselves to blame. You can't keep on shifting blame every time you fail in your duty, in your mandate, in your constitutional responsibility. Yeah, you can't be all the time looking for a scapegoat. Come on, man. This is 2023. We are so deep. The year is almost over. We are in July, and you're still flashing the victim card. Come on, you guys, mumekuwa too much now. So on Wednesday, the struggle continues. We are promoting the maandamano agenda, and also all drivers will not be driving their cars on that day in solidarity. And because of the fuel increases, you saw the Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority, against a court order, which was from the petition filed by Senator Okiya Omtata, still went ahead to increase the fuel prices. Now, do we know who are these guys? Do you know where they live and whatever? You guys fanyani ile kitu, because we can't be held hostage by just a bunch of people who just want to endear themselves to the regime of the day. Remember, EPRA is a monster created by none other than Kiraitu Murungi, the former Meru governor, who was the energy minister, one-time justice and constitutional affairs minister, the most corrupt person you could ever think of, because EPRA was created to regulate prices and to mitigate against, because these oil cartels had formed themselves into, they used to fix the prices, and everyone thought, we did not know that that's how government works, that they create a problem and then they purport to create a solution where they are going to monetize. So in EPRA, Kiraitu Murungi created a monster which is not responsive to the people's aspirations. So the EPRA does not serve the people. It does not do what it was essentially constituted to do. It is just another parastatals like Sakaja's National Employment Authority, which has no form, which has no purpose. It has no, how do you create an employment authority to create jobs? You see, jobs are created by people from a conducive environment. You understand? So this is EPRA. EPRA was just formed as a parastatal because every time in Kenya and the MPs that we have, they always think that you can even legislate common sense. The solution to all our problems is a law. Today I saw Kimani Ichung'wah is bringing a conflict of interest bill. Some things are already contained in every other bills that we have, but now to deflect attention, to show that they are trying to work, conflict of interest bill, and then they do some things, but corruption, the Kenya has the most progressive constitutions, but if there is no political will to fight corruption, every time you're just going to be creating a law. Today, let's create this law, let's say, and then they drag the media through these shenanigans, and the media is more than happy to say, to break it down, this is how this law will be. But we have laws that exist to cope with that. To cope with that very thing that this conflict of interest is talking about. There is a law that exists. But if your work is weakening the investigative, the judicial, DPP is just withdrawing cases, if that's whether you pass 10, 20, 100 laws, we are still back to square one. Which is why now we are coming back to KPLC. Now, let me tell you something about KPLC. KPLC, the power that goes to the slums. Think of any slums in Nairobi and its environments, even in Thika or whatever. The guys there are not charged for electricity. It's the middle class who pay for the slum dwellers' electricity. So every month, KPLC are increasing their unit costs. EPRA does not regulate KPLC. They regulate everything else. They don't regulate KPLC. People living in the slums don't pay any electricity bill. So it's us in the middle class, in the working class, we are the ones who pay for even those peasants who are connected in the so-called last mile endeavor, whatever, initiated during the Jubilee regime. You remember seeing them going into huts, purporting to power peasants, while our manufacturers, SMEs, all of them shut down so that we can appeal, we can pander. Because don't forget, our politicians always play a class war. Every time is always hustlers versus mabwanyenye. But you all know when Ruto got into office, the guys who got tax breaks are the guys who are importing helicopters. So you see, all the time they have to play a divisive card. They have to say, it's a class war. You're fighting the middle class against the poor. Now, the peasants and the slum dwellers don't understand the role of the working class in maintaining them. They are the ones who create jobs for them. They are the ones who give them, daily income. They buy from your mama mbogas. They use your borders. But you think that the government and these politicians who come to bribe you once a year with 1,000 bob, that they deserve all your attention. So the slum dwellers don't pay any electricity. If you remember, there's this politician called Ruben Dolo. Ruben Dolo used to be the MP of Makadara. So there was this time KPLC, they went to disconnect slum dwellers, I don't know where, because they have so many illegal connections there. And then it was very funny because he said, Mukiona wao, weka tairi. So it was to insinuate wachomwe. And then afterwards he was asked afterwards, politicians, he said, nilisema waweke tairi gari ipite. Ruben Dolo. So those guys cannot dare step in the slums because they know what will happen. They know what will happen. You saw how cops were dealt with. There is a video shot by this guy called Ondivo. And then there is also another angle of the same video you see where cops are being nyoroshwad, they are being fukuzwad during the maandamano. They know very well, those KPLC guys, you saw them going to disconnect the Kitui East MP Mbai, Nimrod Mbai. They know very well they cannot go to the slums. Yet the slum people gets electricity, and we are paying that, we are funding that. So will you guys, KPLC and the government, will you keep on pandering to these people based on the class war? Will you keep on pandering to them and hurting the middle class, hurting the working class, hurting the SMEs, hurting the manufacturers? Will you continue with these shenanigans? No. You're going to regulate the power. KPLC, every time the complaints about your unit costs, every time you buy these units at this cost, and then by next month they are going higher. We don't understand why there is fluctuation. We don't understand, but we know it is corruption, and it's time we put an end to it, and we are going to one way or another.